Portable TV. Come watch with me.
All right, welcome back. So we often on the show cover stories about how the U.S. military is far-flung and stationed really in regions and locations all over the globe, and often conducts military drills and exercises near the shores of distant and remote countries, including some of America's adversaries. And we've also often asked the question about how the U.S. government and U.S. military would feel if one of its geopolitical rivals were to do the same. Well, on that, take a look at this. That's video of the Russian Navy. I'm not sure what kind of ship that is, if it's a Russian battleship, cruiser, whatever. But anyway, Russian Navy conducting drills in the Pacific Ocean, not far from Hawaii. The Russian military says it was 300 miles. The Department of Defense says satellite imagery shows, in some cases, at some points, maybe 35 miles from the coast of Hawaii. So, that in mind, could this put U.S.-Russian dialogue, as we were just talking about with Farron, could it put this ongoing dialogue at risk? Well, for more on this, we go to former Naval Intelligence Officer John Jordan. So, John, I got to say, look, I love military stuff. I know you're a military buff, too. When I'm looking at the video, I'm saying, wow, that's pretty cool, man. What kind of ship is that? But maybe not so cool if you're a general at the Pentagon raising red flags about this very close to, as I mentioned, Hawaii. That said, is this just Russia flexing its military muscles and, and showing off, or is this something more ominous and potentially dangerous?
Both and neither, John. The fact of the matter is the Russians, believe it or not, have operated intelligence gathering assets off of the Hawaiian coast, even during the Cold War. In this case, the Russians were doing a couple of things. They wanted to test American response to a pretty large-scale Russian set of maneuvers so close to a U.S. base. The Russians want the world talking about it, and the Russians want to remind the world, and this is the really interesting part, that they, unlike China, the Russians can actually operate naval vessels on a sustained basis far from their own shores and support them with aviation assets. The Chinese can't really do that. The Chinese can't really function too far or deploy important naval assets in a militarily meaningful way more than several hundred kilometers from the Chinese coast. The Russians have made the necessary investments to do this over the last 40 or 50 years, and that's a real qualitative difference between the Russian Navy and the People's Liberation Navy, which is obviously belongs to China. So, and the Russians want us talking about it, but they're also testing America's responses and gathering electronic and signal intelligence to the extent that they're able to.
That's a great point. The U.S. military did scramble, from what I understand, F-22s to basically check out what was going on. So that, goes directly to your point. I'm assuming you saw this video. You saw, or at least you saw in the screen, what the ships. I'm going to put you on the spot. What kind of ships are those? I'm just very curious. And as far as the fighter jets, is that a MiG?
Yeah, the Russians were deploying Tu-95 Bears, which are primarily an anti-submarine platform now, although they were originally designed as a nuclear-capable bomber in the 1950s. While very, very old and relatively slow, they have an extremely long range, and those airplanes, along with the MiGs, were staged out of Kamchatka. The other ships were surface warfare ships, along with underway replenishment ships, the ships that you need to support them far from a base, and they were running an exercise to see if they could attack an American carrier group. Well, while holding that issue aside for a second, they did run an exercise far from home, and that's something very few navies can do.
Final question. A MiG goes up against an F-22 in a dogfight. Who's coming home?
The F-22.
The F-22.
The MiG-31 is a fine airplane. It's a long-range interceptor, but it really has a different mission and is a 40-year-old airframe. But the F-22 comes home.
Great. Good stuff. John Jordan, thank you. Appreciate it, man. Good to have you on again.
My pleasure.